Welcome to Parafries, where a pair of guys share some fries as we paraphrase in paradise.
Let's go! Today we are talking about the story of young Samson. Kind of one of the superheroes of the Bible.
Yeah, he was like an avenger. So let's wind it back all the way to the birth of Samson. His mom technically couldn't have any kids.
One day, an angel of the Lord appeared to her and was like, "You're gonna have a kid.
But there's a catch. Gonna have to make him a Nazirite.
You can't touch or eat anything that's unclean. You can't eat or drink anything that's made from grapes."
I love grapes.
I would have been out.
Me too.
That'd have been my downfall.
I had grapes today.
And then the third thing is that he could not cut his hair.
How to keep it a long, flowing mane.
Because of his Nazirite vow, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him to do some pretty crazy things.
Let's hit him with the highlight reel, Cameron.
He ripped the gates off a city once.
He caught 300 foxes, tied their tails together, lit them on fire, and set them loose into the Philistine
He
camp.
destroyed an entire army with the jawbone of a donkey.
That's some Avenger stuff right there.
It really is.
So fast forward to a little bit later, Samson kind of gets a little itch to get married, to have himself a little wifey. And the Israelites, they weren't supposed to marry outside of the Israelites.
Yeah.
And one time they went to this place called Timnah. He's with his parents, and Samson was like, "Hey, I like that one over there."
She looked good.
And his parents are like, "Samson, she's not an Israelite, man." And he's like, "Well, she looks good to me. I'll have her." Turns out, the first marriage did not work out.
It didn't. It ended in a lot of killing.
Yeah.
Much like most of Samson's
Samson got
stories.
really mad, killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so he's gotta move on to the next one.
So he finds this woman named Delilah.
They hit it off.
She looks good too.
She's not an Israelite. Turns out she's under the employ of the Philistines.
In cahoots, as it
In
were.
cahoots with the Philistines.
When Israel had no king,
Philistines, they were basically oppressing them.
there was a lot of bad blood there.
A lot of bad blood.
They offer her a certain number of pieces of silver.
A handsome sum to get to the bottom of Samson's strength.
They're living together at this point, and she's like, "Hey,
Have some wine.
have some wine. Break that vow again."
Have some strong drink. He is stumbling and bumbling, and she's like, "Oh, Samson, please. Won't you tell me your strength?"
How do I get rid of your strength? That's basically what she asks him.
That's what I meant to say. He should have been a little sus about her at this point. Why do you want to know?
He was like, "You know what? Tie me up with some fresh bowstrings."
She takes him up on it. Once he falls
falls.
asleep, she gets the freshest bowstring she could find, okay? Freshest in the land. Ties him up real tight.
She says, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you."
And then he's like, what? Breaks the bowstrings, and the Philistines are like,
Delilah's like, "You don't really love me.
Sammy, you lied to me.
If you really
Sammy.
love me, you'd tell me.
Come on, Sammy.
Come on. Samson,
Sammy, come on.
come on,
Come on, Sammy.
come on." He's like, "You know what? Bowstrings, those are too small. If you had some fresh rope,
Get some freshies.
then I'll be weak as anyone else."
Fast forward.
"Samson, the Philistines, they're upon you, and you're all tied up in a rope."
Breaks the rope. He bests the Philistines in that moment.
It's true.
Night 3. Samson, what's the source of your strength?
Oh,
How can I disarm you?
you know what? If you were to just braid my hair into a common loom that you would do for making clothes or blankets or things.
And then she's like, what? For real?
Just braid my hair into the loom.
Into the loom?
Just braid it on in, and I'm as weak as anyone else.
Seems weird, but just go to sleep.
All right, I'm gonna sleep over here by this loom.
She obviously braids his hair into the loom.
Yeah. "Samson, the Philistines are upon you, as I was casually braiding your hair into this loom."
He wakes up.
It says he shook it off, so he's just like, "Wow." And she's like, "My loom."
I spent 4 months' wages on that loom.
She's gonna have to buy a new one with all this money she gets from selling Samson's secrets. After much crying, much "you don't even love me"ing, Samson's finally had enough.
Fine. You cut my hair. I'm weak.
I know you did all
Want
these.
the truth?
You did all these other things. She probably won't do this one, right?
Yeah, she can be trusted. So she cuts his hair, and the Philistines capture him, gouge his eyes out, put him in prison. Turns out Delilah couldn't be trusted. There was no signs. There was no signs. So the Philistines, they're throwing this big old party. They're like, "Oh, we're the most amazing people in all the land. We caught Samson." Bring him. Somebody send for Samson. Bring him out and put him on display.
I'll do it.
At this party we're having in this big building.
I'll do it. Hi, I'm the intern.
Oh,
you needed
intern.
Samson?
Gary, is that Gary?
Yes, Gary here.
All right, Gary, go get Samson, lead him out, and tie him up somewhere.
Say no more.
Make sure it's a safe place to tie him up.
Sounds good. Say no more. And he goes and he gets Samson and leads him out, like hand holding or something.
Samson's blind.
Yeah.
He just has eyes literally gouged out.
Yep. And so Samson has a little bright idea. Hey, Gary, could you just take me to two of the most load-bearingest pillars we have in this place? And so Gary takes him, and there's really no Gary. We don't know who this is, but somebody takes him to these load-bearing pillars. And while Samson's there, one hand on each pillar.
Turns out when he was in prison, his hair had grown back.
And he lets out a little prayer to God. He says, listen, I know I'm kind of the worst, but just let me die with these Philistines. Let me take all of them out.
Stick to these Philistines one last time.
One last time. And God answered his prayer with a big old yes. And so he starts pushing. Yeah!
The building collapses, kills like, I don't know how many?
3,000 Philistines
in one blow.
They just
Building
knocked
comes
over
down.
the pillars. You could argue that the architecture back then was way too based on two pillars.
It did seem like a real Death Star scenario. 2 protons take the whole thing out.
It's true. He pushes over these pillars and down goes the building.
But when you look back at Samson's life, time after time after time, he disobeyed his parents' advice, his parents' orders, and God's orders, okay? He was a Nazarite. He broke all of the vows that he vowed to God, and it didn't turn out well for him in the end.
Or the Philistines, for that matter.
True. And that's the tragic cautionary tale of Samson.